all in all, is an evolution of rising above the ego and connecting. And that's why education becomes paramount here. And especially that group called the people of Israel needs to realize that they have to initiate it. They have to activate that mechanism of human connection, and the method for it also is detailed in the wisdom of Kabbalah. And once they realize that connection, they will gradually first realize it among themselves. First, recreate that connection among the Jewish people. And even just by doing that, it will already radiate to the world, and the whole world will begin to follow towards that connection. That's the meaning of being light unto the nations. I'm hopeful that we will somehow move towards this mission, but unfortunately, it's still hard to see that it's happening, whether it's in Israel or in America. I'm barely seeing people willing, and Jewish people, or people in general, willing to hear about it. That's a big problem. Maybe Professor Patterson has some advice or insights how to solve this, but I'd be happy to hear anything. In that regards, I feel helpless, because even though I'm seeing what's happening in the world and things are unfolding just like we've been discussing in the last 2 decades, but as it's now happening, and this wave and this fire of anti-Semitism is starting to blaze again and starting to spread around the world, I feel very, very powerless, and it's hard to see how we can deal with this situation. So I'm looking for advice.
I'm curious. I mean, you both talk about the Jews being assigned this role, a responsibility, a role. To me, and I'm speaking with people on the outside, people have like a knee-jerk reaction against it. No, what do you mean assigned? What do you mean special? Like they can't go beyond that. And
Of course. No one wants to take on the task. It's a commitment. If you say something like you're a special people, of course, that sounds okay. You're unique and special. But if you go deep into what it actually means in terms of the responsibility for humanity, no one wants to listen to that. And also, but why? Why did you get it? Why did you receive the Torah? Which is essentially the method for connection between everyone. To be a light unto the nations. What does it mean to be a light unto the nations? To give it to others, to share it with others.
Professor Patterson, you recently attended a conference on anti-Semitism. I know that's what you do routinely.
Yes.
I see that many. I have like 2 questions. I guess first question is, I see that many people, especially Jews, not only, maintain that yes, there is anti-Semitism, there is hate. No, we can't really solve it completely. The best we can hope for is maybe stop people from saying anti-Semitic things or being violent toward Jews. Is this really kind of what you feel is left to do, or is there a higher ground we can get to?
Well, I think there is a higher ground, a higher mission, a higher aspiration. Dr. Laitman mentioned the importance of education. Education entails much more than providing information. The education entails engendering a capacity to see the face of the other human being, to see the humanity in the other human being. What does that mean? The evil of anti-Semitism is a blindness to seeing the humanity in the other person, Jew or otherwise. It's the plague of darkness, the choshech, right? The darkness that plagued the Egyptians, which is described as a darkness in which no man could see the face of his brother. No man could see the sanctity of his fellow human being. Now, so education, getting back to that, is chinuch, which means sanctification or dedication and education. Education of a child, dedication of the temple is in Hanukkah, and the sanctification of a home. There's a Kabbalist, the Rabbi Kalonymus Kalmish Shapira, who discusses these links. He was known as the Rebbe of the Warsaw Ghetto. So education, as I said, is not about information. It's about acquiring a vision of the holiness of the other human. It's about acquiring a capacity to say, Hineni, here I am for you. One way to engage that is to cultivate dialogue, talking to one another, listening to one another. As a human being in Jewish tradition is a medaber, right? A speaking being. I would say a human being is also a listening being. It lies in to listen to another person is to gradually come to see the face, the humanity, the dearness of that other person. And what do you see when you see that? When you to behold the face of the other person is to receive a commandment, starting with lo tirtzach, do not murder, which goes on to love, but not only not murder, but love. The anti-Semite who would get rid of God has to get rid of the commandment not to murder. In fact, the Zohar tells us that Anochi Hashem, I am the Lord God, means lo tirtzach, do not murder. So you get rid of God, you get rid of the prohibition against murder, and then there's no limiting principle left. So education is about restoring a capacity to hear the commandment, to behold the holiness in the other person. It can be engendered by talking to one another, like we're talking to one another now. But maybe even more importantly, finding ways to talk to those with whom you would not normally want to talk.